Posted by you/Mystic Pato. What is your Tinder horror story? Not me, but I worked as a bartender for a while and heard a lot of horror stories secondhand. This one girl who was a regular came in and told me about an awful Tinder date she had. Not sure of the specifics, but it wasn't bad enough for her to not bring him home afterward. He leaves the next morning, she brushes it off as a one-night stand, and a few days later, her debit card gets declined. Odd, since she is a bartender herself at a fairly busy place in our city and is good about saving and usually flush with cash. She goes to check her debit card, turns out there were a bunch of charges at Best Buy, Grubhub, a bunch of other stuff. Curious, she checks her credit card too. There she found a bunch of charges for streaming services. Netflix, Hulu, Sling, everything. She goes to confront the guy and finds out he deleted his profile. But she remembers a friend they had in common on Facebook. She reaches out to the mutual friend to try and track him down, and it turns out he did the exact same thing to that mutual friend. Not sure if what the outcome was, but she was out for blood after a mediocre hookup turned into a serious case of identity theft. I went on a Tinder date a couple months ago on a Sunday afternoon. Met up with a guy around 3, he had a really good energy and was funny and complimentary. The place we wanted to go had a long line, so we went to another restaurant on the water for a drink and appetizers. He started slamming down Mai Tais. I had 1, he had 3. They were strong. Like, I was tipsy, borderline drunk off of 1. The bar had a 2 Mai Tai per person limit, but he found another bartender to get his 3rd. He got drunker and started telling me he loved me, joking at first but getting increasingly serious. As we left he asked me to marry him. I kind of laughed it off, and was like, maybe we take it slow, we just met each other. He got so mad he stormed off and left me on a street corner. Then as soon as he got home, it was 5 p.m, he started texting me, come over. And I miss you. He was 43. WTF. I went on a date with this guy who I didn't really have anything in common with but thought I'd give him a shot anyways. We met up at a bar and he had already pounded 2 pitchers of beer but was completely sober, at least from what I could tell. We hung out, talked, and although he seemed nice enough, I wasn't quite feeling it. I wanted to leave but he convinced me to go to another bar to get one last drink. Seeing as it was only about 8 p.m. I agreed to one more drink. We were sitting at the bar and a couple was making out next to us. He looked at me and asked what I thought people in the bar would do if he and I started making out. I knew where this was going. I tried to laugh and make some joke about no one paying attention. He then insisted that we should make out. I nervously laughed and told him that wasn't a very good idea and excused myself to the restroom. I came back to the seat and he had a shot waiting for me and insisted I drink it. No shot for him, just me. I declined and he got really upset and said he was ready to go. At that point in the evening he had consumed 2 pitchers of beer, 4 margaritas, and 2 more pints, yet displayed no sign of being intoxicated. Nonetheless, I knew there was a lot of alcohol in his system and asked if he thought it was a good idea for him to drive. He got extremely defensive and said he was fine. We exited the bar and he took off in the opposite direction. When I got home I texted him just to make sure he was okay because I'd had so much to drink. His response? I only date girls I fuck on the first date. Dodged a bullet with that one. He told me he's not gay but he prefers to have sex with men and prefers to be on the bottom. I asked if he was bi and he said no, I'm straight, I just like getting fucked in the ass. And then he asked me if he could pee in my butt cause he's always wanted to try it but he won't top guys so he can't find out how it feels. He's the head football coach of a private college in my state and that made it even weirder somehow. Edit. Just wanna add that I'm a woman and not a gay man at all, Lamau. Not me, my dad. Not Tinder either, it was Match.com. My dad had been on Match for about 3 months with some success. He's a tall Australian man who's decent looking so he had some interest. One weekend he got sent his first nude which he thought had strange, but brushed it off. Later that week he got 6 more nudes from the same woman. Before he blocked her, he decided that he would open them just for kicks. 5 of the pictures are just straight up veg shots, which he said were incredibly unappealing and had terrible lighting. The 6th picture however was something different. The woman was standing in her bra in front of a mirror, puss out, winking, with a bunch of herbs shoved in her bra. Basil, parsley, thyme, all that good stuff. The caption on the picture was Spice Rack. She was swiftly blocked after my dad stopped laughing long enough to find the block button. Started talking to this guy, exchanged numbers, everything was completely normal and we hit it off. He had a good job, we had similar interests, and he was really good looking. He asks me out for drinks, we go, talk for a couple hours, have fun. We continue texting and he asks me to hang out at his place the next time. I go, his place is normal looking, no red flags. We start talking, he's drinking, and he gets super paranoid out of nowhere. He tells me he did a background check on me and then asks me if I am acquainted with a specific person he must know somehow or have trouble with. I say no, and he continues asking me questions about this so-called person with which he never says a name. He then tells me he has killed someone before, and then asks me if I'm wearing a wire on me. At this point I was trying not to freak out, which I did a pretty good job of. I continued to play it cool as we talked. He kept telling me how much he liked me and that he liked me so much that I should just leave. He said this to me about 15 times. I like you so much you should just go, something along those lines. Eventually I took it as my way out and left before he could think twice about what I was doing. I got to my car, which wasn't a far walk from his front door, and I remember saying Jesus Christ to myself before driving away quickly. About 5 minutes later he called me and couldn't believe I left. He kept asking me if I trusted him multiple times, and I finally got him off the phone by saying I had to work early and go to bed. I only answered because I was trying to break it off easy so he didn't do anything to me. He called me again at 5 that morning, which I didn't answer. Never heard from him again after that. Thank God. Thanks Tinder. Oh, I have one where I was probably the nightmare. I went on a first date with a girl from Tinder at a Cajun restaurant in Dallas. The restaurant was the Rizzo's on 75. I had read recently about some stuff called kratom, that is supposed to make you feel really relaxed and euphoric, and I had tried to make a tea from the recommended dosage the previous day, but I didn't feel anything off of it. So I figured if this stuff was supposed to make you be cool and euphoric, then the best time to take it would be for a first date. And since I didn't feel anything from it the first time, I figured I should take more. So I wrapped a lot of it. Kratom is usually sold as a greenish, super bitter powder, up inside of balls of deli meat, and swallowed those whole before the date. I then went to the lunch feeling nothing, until I met the girl and sat down, at which point I suddenly came to the realization that I was a few seconds away from projectile vomiting up all that kratom and deli meat in the middle of the restaurant. I excused myself, got up from the table, walked a few steps towards the bathroom until I began to violently vomit. At which point I covered my mouth with my hands, began choking on my own vomit as I sprinted towards the bathroom, leaked a trail of vomit all over the floor and a path towards the bathroom, then continued to violently projectile vomit into the trash can in the bathroom. I then spent a while to clean my face and wash my arms and hands, which were soaked in vomit. I then returned to the table and tried to survive the rest of the lunch date without dying of embarrassment. I felt like a huge asshole and was really embarrassed. Edit: the road was 75 in Dallas. Not a 75. Chatted with this girl for about 2 weeks. Every conversation went well and eventually I got her number and she started sharing nudes and speaking dirty. Late on evening after a stressful workday, she talks me into driving an hour to come get coffee with her. She spends the next hour and a half non-stop talking about her ex and how she has to see him at the bank and all this personal upset ex-girlfriend stuff. She cuts me off anytime I try to speak or change the subject right back to him. A day later I get a text about how I didn't do any talking and I was too boring to be anything more than just friends with. She got irate when I pointed out she would not allow me to speak and only wanted to talk about her ex-boyfriend when we have never once had a slow or boring conversation before meeting up. Not my story, but I knew a guy who had a Freudian slip, more dark side Kermit, bad enough that it ruined everything. I was told this by him after he got home, and suffice to say he was like, "Why the fuck did I say that?" Date had been going well, and they were walking back to a bus station. They passed a creepy alley, and she said something to the effect of, "Wow, I would not like to go down that alley," to which he responded, "I imagine you are very rapeable." Suffice to say, she ran for the hills and he was mortified. He very much was not a creepy person and had no clue why the hell he said that, nor has he, to the extent of my knowledge, raped anyone. But Christ almighty, do I agree with the girl's decision to run. This girl I matched with just messaged to troll me. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" and she was like, "Don't talk to me unless you plan on fucking me with your 9-inch dick." I forgot what my reply was, but she obviously never messaged back. Then a week later I'm getting McDonald's and this girl was the one who handed me my food. She recognizes me instantly and just had this total look of fear in her eyes. I walked out of there so quick. That poor girl thought I purposely sought her out to confront her or something. First date, we went to see a movie. She brought her sister along, without consulting me first, and I somehow ended up paying for both of their tickets. Bit of a doormat, old me. We went to see Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Turns out, neither of them had seen a Star Wars film before, nor had any idea at all what was going on. Awesome. Date ended at McDonald's after the movie with 1 hour plus of her eating fries one at a time, and her sister talking shit about basically everyone at her work. To this day I'm not sure what that date was even about. There was no second date. This happened on Bumble, but I'll write it anyway, woman shrugging. There was this guy I used to work with like 2 years ago who I had a big crush on. He walked out of the job 2 weeks after I got hired, however I would see him sometimes because he would come in to get coupons from his sister. She also worked there and still does. So a year ago I found him on Bumble and we matched. I shot my shot, and he took me out on a date a week later and we hooked up afterwards. He specifically told me not to tell his sister anything and ghosted me afterwards, hitting me up once in a while to hook up, but I would avoid him because I wanted something serious. Fast forward a month later, I meet someone new who wanted to take things seriously and I told the other guy that I was seeing someone else and he snapped. Started calling me rude names, saying I wasn't special, etc. Your typical self-proclaimed nice guy lamau. For 8 months, he would come into my job to see if I was there and make accounts to message me. I would block every account of his but he kept trying, and I was scared to tell his sister because sometimes people defend family no matter what, but I gave in and she took my side thankfully. Ended up telling their mom and they both snapped at him from what I was told, and he hasn't bothered me ever since.